Can you hear me? Morning all. I'll call the meeting to order. So today I'd like to get a nomination to adopt the agenda for today. Dan moves adoption of the agenda for today. All those in favor? Carried. Minutes from January 17th. Any discussion regarding that? Anybody want to move the minutes from 17th? Michelle moves the minutes from the January 17th meeting. All those in favor? Carried. So I guess today to start with, we've got development subdivision application 23CY01. Brian, do you want to take the chair? And is there anybody else with you as well? Okay, so he's not going to take a chair, he's just going to observe? Okay. You're our only customer today, so might as well partake. Okay, so this is 23, as I said, 23CY01. Take it away, Becky.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this property is located on Range Road 75, approximately 4.8 kilometers north of Highway 3. And the legal description is the southeast 1911-7 west of the 4th. The proposal is to subdivide a 3.20 hectare parcel containing an existing residence and yard to create a separate title. The owner is Martin and Elizabeth Peters, and the applicant is Global Remax Surveys. And this would be a country residential subdivision with the land use of Country Residential District 2. This application is intended to subdivide a 3.20 hectare or 7.9 acre country residential parcel containing an existing residence and yard to create a separate title. The remainder of the agricultural title contains irrigated cropland and is 32.26 hectares or 79.74 acres in size. The existing parcel was subdivided from the remainder of the agricultural title utilizing the irrigation canal as an involuntary severance. However, there are no records to confirm the year. In 1962, an additional 3.16 hectare or 7.82 acre country residential subdivision was created to the north of the proposed parcel. The creation of the proposed country residential subdivision to accommodate the yard site would result in the fourth title in the quarter section. The proposed subdivision gains direct and immediate access from Range Road 75 from an existing access approach. The applicant is proposing a 30.5 meter wide separation between the proposed parcel and the existing subdivision to the north for access to the remnant agricultural portion. And this is probably a good time to bring up that Global Remax Surveys did submit a revised drawing, and that was just to accommodate a setback to one of the accessory buildings. So it's very minimal. It hasn't changed the parcel size, but the access right-of-way has gotten a little bit wider, and the parcel has moved out into the quarter just slightly. And there are no oil or gas wells in proximity to the proposed subdivision. The proposed subdivision is outside of the Tri-Area Intermunicipal Development Plan boundary. The South Saskatchewan Regional Plan states that municipalities are to identify their agricultural land and limit fragmentation and conversion to non-agricultural uses. Under the implementation section of the plan, Section 5, Efficient Use of Land, it states that the land use framework promotes approaches to reduce the amount of land that is taken up by permanent or long-term development by utilizing the minimum amount of land necessary. Section 6661 of the Municipal Government Act states that a subdivision authority may require the owner of a parcel of land that is subject of a proposed subdivision to provide reserve. Money in place of municipal reserve is recommended on the subdivided parcel. Part 2.9, Road Access of the Subdivision Regulations of the Municipal Government Act states that every proposed subdivision must provide direct access to a road or lawful means of access satisfactory to the subdivision authority to each lot that is created. Section 4.1.23, Subdivision Residential of the Municipal Development Plan, states the county may support the subdivision of an existing farmstead or single vacant parcel if the following conditions are met. The parcel is redistricted to the appropriate country residential land use. The country residential parcel conforms to the applicable country residential regulation in the land use bylaw. The subdivision will not impact or hinder the agricultural use on the balance of the quarter section, and all parcels have direct access to the existing municipal road network or provincial highway. And utility easements may be required between the proposed parcel and the remainder of the quarter section. So when we circulated the application, Cypress County Finances replied that this parcel is subject to the West Side Water Co-op. If the intent is to transfer the connection to the new parcel, the applicant will need to submit a letter to Cypress County stating the intent, as well as notify West Side Water Co-op. Once the co-op has approved the transfer, Cypress County will transfer the local improvement. The Director of Municipal Services replied that the proposed subdivision complies with Section 4.1.23 of the Municipal Development Plan and is consistent with similar subdivision applications that were recently approved. Cypress County Public Works replied that there is an existing approach between Block A and the proposed Block B, which provides access to the remnant agricultural parcel. TELUS Communications replied that they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. Fortis Alberta replied that they are the distribution wire service provider for the area and that no easement is required. Equus replied that they do not have a concern with the proposed subdivision as there currently is no utility, they do have a concern with the proposed subdivision as there currently is no utility right-of-way registered on the lands. Equus must maintain its distribution system in order to provide efficient energy to its members. The utility right-of-way is a legal document that protects these interests. Therefore, Equus requires that all power utilities be registered with Alberta land titles prior to subdivision. Apex Utilities replied they have no objection to the proposed subdivision. The SMRID replied that if the applicant wishes to continue to use non-potable water provided by the district, the landowners will be required to set up a water co-op since there is more than one subdivided lot within the quarter section prior to consent of the subdivision. In addition, they will be required to obtain easements to guarantee supply of water to the delivery point, and the easement must be provided to the district. The district will then prepare a remote delivery agreement and register same on title. All easements, work, etc. will be responsibility of the landowners. There appears to be livestock on the larger parcel. If water is required for the livestock, a water conveyance agreement, agriculture, must be entered into with the district. Westside Water Co-op replied that they have no concerns with the proposed subdivision. However, should the subdivision result in a new title being created, which includes the residents, the homeowner will be responsible to contact the co-op and arrange to transfer the service to the new title. And the Cypress County Assessor provided a market value assessment rate of $13,021.28 per hectare for money in place of municipal reserve purposes. So if I move on to my recommendation, it's approval, subject to the following conditions. Number one, the developer is required to register a utility right-of-way with Equus to ensure the distribution system is maintained. The right-of-way is to be registered prior to the registration of the subdivision plan with Alberta land titles. Number two, the developer is required to provide Cypress County Finances with written notification if the intent is to transfer the local improvement tax for the Westside Water Co-op to the subdivided parcel prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta land titles. It is the developer's responsibility to ensure that all necessary agreements are executed with the Westside Water Co-op to transfer the water service connection to the newly created parcel. Number three, if the water is to be provided for the subdivided parcel from the SMRID, then the developer is required to provide Cypress County with written evidence that the SMRID's requirement for the establishment of a water co-op has been met and that appropriate water agreement has been signed, and any necessary easements to guarantee supply of water to the delivery point have been executed prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta land titles. Number four, the developer is required to make a payment to the county for money in place of municipal reserve for 3.20 hectares at a rate of $1,302.12 per hectare, being 10% of the appraised market value of $13,021.28 per hectare. The payment is to be submitted to the county prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta land titles. And number 5, our standard condition, the developer is required to supply copies of any utility right-of-way plans, easements, and/or agreements, which are to be registered as a requirement for any affected utilities to Cypress County prior to the subdivision's registration with Alberta land titles. And that is my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Becky. Brian, do you have anything to add to that?
No, nothing to add, just ready for questions if there are any.
Thank you. I'll open the floor up for discussion. Dan?
So on your water right, or your West Side Water Co-op, you're taking it from A and taking it over to B? Is that what you're planning on doing?
Well, Brian can jump in if he needs, but from my understanding, Westside Water Co-op is already on the proposed parcel.
Well, so they've got 2 outlets there.
Correct.
So they're just transferring it over, that's all.
Yeah, so there's one outlet for the remaining land right now that has the residents on it. If they subdivide out this portion and it gets approved, they would have the option to have the Westside Water Co-op on the remnant portion or to stay with the residents. So we're asking them to verify if what title they want it on, the one with the residents or the remnant portion. And
Okay. Wouldn't we require it to go with the residents so they have water then? Or, because
we do, but the condition is saying we want written evidence that that's where you want the water to go, so we can transfer it on our end. So it would stay.
Jeffrey?
Thank you. Yeah, I think really, because this is a second title that's being created, the applicant really has the option of either developing whatever they want for their water source. They could use the unused water connection through the Westside Water Co-op. Of course, that would be our preference, but really it's not our call to make. It's up to the landowner. Alternatively, they could put in a cistern and haul water. They could also drill a well and get approval from Alberta Environment to drill a water well. Or I guess they could also enter into a domestic water supply agreement with the St. Mary's River Irrigation District. So I think to answer your question, Dan, what's happening is right now there's, for you guys to kind of look at that screen, Brian. Anyway, right now, as I understand it, there's an existing connection for this property to the Westside Water Co-op. And then there's another connection that they purchased, which is basically for this right now. And then the idea would be for, the existing connection is here. And then there's a second connection which would be here. And the idea would be to hopefully maybe transfer it to the new subdivided parcel. But there's nothing to say that it couldn't remain with the rest of the ag land if they wanted to. The difficulty is, I don't know what they would use it for, because the idea of being able to, I guess, if they ever wanted to build a residence on the remainder of the agricultural parcel, they could utilize it for that purposes, because technically another residence could be built on the remnant land. So it's really up to the landowner to determine where they want to utilize that connection. But we need confirmation and verification so that, as Becky alluded to in her report, that we know from the county's perspective if it's going to be applied or utilized as part of the new subdivision that's being created, so that we can apply the local improvement plan tax to that new subdivided parcel.
So every other subdivision we've done, we always ask, where's your water source? And we make sure they have one before we okay it, correct?
So we do make sure that what the water source is, in the case that, just as an example, if there was a water well on this property, we want to ensure the water well is contained within the new subdivision boundaries. So we're not trying to get water from a different property for a house. So we do check the water sources to make sure the boundaries accommodate that. However, we don't require a guaranteed water source for a single parcel or an agricultural parcel. We look at that more for multi-parcel subdivision, where we require a guaranteed water source.
Yeah, that we years ago we did, but now that's changed a little bit. Right, Jeffrey? Yeah.
Yeah, I think Becky described it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Okay. Okay, Lloyd moves approval of 23CY01 with conditions as presented. All those in favor? Carried. Your subdivision has been approved, subject to meeting the conditions which were previously discussed. The county will now mail you a copy of your subdivision approval. You are advised to begin working towards completing the necessary conditions and making the arrangements to have the approved subdivided area surveyed if you haven't already done so. You have 1 year from the date of subdivision approval to have met all of the conditions and to have the survey plan submitted to Alberta Land Titles. If you have any further questions, you may contact the planner to discuss them after today's meeting. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay, next we'll just move on to development applications for viewing. Any discussion regarding that? Okay, we'll move on to the planner's report. Becky?
I'm here to answer any questions if you have any regarding that. You should have it, I think.
Yeah, we don't read that anymore, do we? Okay, so is this your last planner's report, Jeffrey?
Actually, Becky submitted the planner's report, so yeah, so this is all her work, but this is my last Municipal Planning Commission meeting, yes.
Well, thank you very much for your years of service, and in my opinion, you're too darn young to retire.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was just saying to Brian Monroe and Noah that I've attended the Municipal Planning Commission meetings since November of 1991. I didn't do the exact math, but I think it adds up to more than 360 Municipal Planning Commission meetings in that time. I only missed one Municipal Planning Commission meeting in my entire career, and that was because I had a flight delay and couldn't get here on time. But, you know, I think back to, you know, the very first, and here's the interesting thing, in the 32 years of my sitting on the Municipal Planning Commission, there's been only 4 chairmen in that entire time. So that's amazing, considering all the people that we've had sitting on the Planning Commission over the years. It started with, I remember it was Wayne Heller, and then it transferred to Ralph Erb, and then it went to Stan Stair, and then of course our current chairman, Wade. So that's one of the things that I was reflecting on, and that we've only had 4 chairmen in that whole time.
Wow. And I have the honor of being the chair over the meeting you did miss, so.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the meeting I missed wasn't that long ago. It was back in 2019, and so, but yeah, that's the only planning commission meeting I've ever missed in my entire career. So.
Well, on behalf of MPC, thank you very much for your years of service. It's much appreciated, and it's been a pleasure serving with you and hearing your well thought out analysis and your really important input to all of our commission meetings. So.
Thank you. That means a lot. Certainly, you know, with all of the, like I say, the different councilors as well as members at large that have been appointed to the Planning Commission over the years, it's been a pleasure to work with all of you. You know, we've had a lot of challenges, a lot of tricky scenarios and situations, but you know, it was my pleasure, and certainly serving the citizens of Cypress County has been my pleasure as well. So thank you.
Any discussion regarding the planner's report? Move it? Okay. Nigel moves approval of the planner's report. All those in favor? Carried. Yearly permit comparisons. That's interesting. What's that? Yeah, it looks like renewables are our main source of business. Whether we like it or not, hey, Dan? Yeah. do you want to discuss maybe some of the input you told me earlier? That I think that was worthy of discussion here.
Yeah, I can share some of it. So last week we were at Bromley's in Calgary with all the lawyers, and they brought up renewables, and we got a chance to talk to them afterwards, and they know that we can't do anything, but they're actually pushing us towards, especially solar. They came up with the idea of maybe trying to sneak in some language and verbiage in there that'll help if part of a solar area is out of commission or they're not using it. They got to start reclamation on it and clean it up instead of having a big mess out there. Just starting to downsize it if they're not using it. One big thing, and Wade was here, so is Michelle. When we were asked with the wind towers, or we asked them, how are you doing your reclamation? And the farmers stood up and the ranchers and said, don't worry about it, it's our problem and we're taking control of that. We need to get the verbiage in the permits that we give out, stating that they've stated that, because in 25 years, we're not going to be on this planning commission and people will be retired and stuff. Nobody's going to remember what was said that day when that was given out. So it's very important for us to get that on the verbiage to remain with that all the way through that application or that permit. So there is quite a few things, and the lawyers are really fighting to try and get the reclamation put in so we have something to go by. It's going to be a long road, but they want us to start putting little verbiages in just to start getting stuff in there so they have something that they can go back and say, well, Cypress County stated this in their permits, and then everybody else can start following it. Or if somebody else has it, we can use it. Just, it's small steps, but something to work on.
Is anybody else doing it now?
They're encouraging everybody to do it. Because it's been such a cut, no, you can't do anything, they want little things put in.
So is it within our purview as Planning Commission in the county to ask them to provide proof of power generation from these, all parts of the site? Would that give us more insight into whether these developments are in fact in the best interest of the county, or are they just a way of generating a tax refund from the provincial or the federal government?
I didn't ask that question. That one wasn't brought up, so. No, that's a good point though, but we can ask the lawyers on that. Oh yeah, we have the live one, don't we?
So I mean, if these are put in place under the auspices of the best interest of all the citizens of Alberta, that's the AUC's purview to say that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it would be very helpful for us in our considerations if we're going to impose these sites on the neighbors, maybe it's within our purview to say, listen, this better be doing what it said it was going to do, or else we would have to ask for decommissioning.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just thought.
Do you want to ask that one on Thursday?
I was just talking to Tara Lynn about tomorrow, Thursday, because she's coming too, so. Oh. So, yeah, I was just talking to Tara Lynn about it. And I'll bring that up and we'll get something before the meeting.
Okay. Becky, did you have some input on this?
Sorry, I was just trying to think back to the permitting, and I was just reviewing the land use bylaw because I think we do have a condition regarding the decommissioning that it has to follow their plan, because they have to put a plan into the AUC with their approval. So I think that's our saviors, that we say it has to follow that. We kind of push it off, right? But I just found something. So we do have a blurb in here. I'm not sure if it's about the solar that you were talking about, but so this is in our wind side. It says that if a wind energy facility discontinues producing power for a minimum of 2 years, the operator shall be required to provide a status report. A review of the status report by the Development Authority may result in a request for the wind energy facility to be decommissioned. Failure to comply with the decommissioning request may result in the issuance of a stop order by the designated officer in accordance with the provisions of the MGA. So I don't know if that's similar to what you, that's not solar. I don't know if it's in our solar.
See, well, it's close, but not, they're saying that if they don't, and we have to set that in our bylaws on what the time's gonna be. But if they don't operate for that amount of time, it's time for it to come down. They have to decommission it and bring it out. And reclaim, do all the reclamation on it. So,
Wade?
Go ahead, Jeffrey.
Oh, let Michelle go first.
I was just going to say that talks about decommissioning and not providing power, but it doesn't say anything about the reclamation in there. Yeah, assumptions suck lately.
Is it within our abilities to get a copy of the reclamation plan for each development so that we can have that on file for future reference?
I'm fairly certain they submit that with their package, their application package,
Yeah.
along with AUC approval. It includes their decommissioning plan, but from the ones I've seen are really vague, right? Because there isn't really any regulation